Yo, what's good, everybody? It's me, Don Weep here, back with a brand new episode, episode 6 for What If Deku Had Rewind. If you guys have not already, please make sure to go slap that like button, comment down below what you think of the video after you're done watching it, and subscribe to my channel for more videos from me. We're almost at 11,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. We are almost pretty much 300 away. And before we get into this video, if you guys have not already and you're new and you're just joining into the what if of this what if, then make sure to check out in the upper right hand corner. There'll be a card which will be a playlist of all the previous parts, so you guys can watch that from 1 through 5 and then come to this one. So anyway, that's enough of that, and let's just get into this part, what you guys came here for What If Deku Had Rewind. Deku and Bakugo run inside of the area, this huge city block that was set to be their area of battle against their teacher, All Might. This time, instead of Deku thinking that he can't beat All Might, he and Bakugo are devising a plan where they both can win together. They're planning on taking All Might down. Deku, who wants to use his power to show and prove to All Might that he can succeed as his next successor, doesn't want to shy away. He wants to show All Might that he is strong, and he can be stronger than him if he really tries. Deku's shaking inside, as he knows how powerful All Might is. After seeing All Might's numerous feats and having watched him for years, Deku would tell Bakugo his plan, with Bakugo begrudgingly listening to Deku, since in this timeline, he actually respects Deku, instead of what he had originally, with Bakugo looking down on him. Since Deku was born with a powerful quirk just like Bakugo, the two had more in common, and Bakugo was less of a jerk to him. So anyway, Bakugo would consider the idea before telling Deku that he still wants to go and smash him by himself, telling Deku to hang back and they'll do this one-on-one. Deku would say that it's unlikely they can win like that, but he'll give Bakugo the shot, since if he really wants to do that, they can do that. Deku would climb up into the building as he uses One For All and activates One For All across his entire body. As he jumps up into the building, he would then hide in it, telling Bakugo to go and meet up with All Might and we'll see what happens. Bakugo would laugh as he tells Deku just to watch, and then walk out of the gate with him after he beats All Might. With a sudden flash and a burst of a wave of a sonic boom, Bakugo would be using his explosions to propel himself through the air, as he goes closer and closer towards the heart of the fake city. As Bakugo is nearing it, suddenly we can hear something. As suddenly a wave of wind pressure comes raging against the city as all the windows shatter in the buildings, as All Might threw the first punch. Bakugo will get blasted by this wind as he gets forced back, slamming into a wall. Bakugo would then get him and pull himself up, as Deku is still watching from inside the building, amazed at All Might's power, even with these weights on. Just as All Might's looking around wondering where Midoriya is, Bakugo would now go on the assault as he continues throwing explosions at All Might, with him doing nothing. All Might would grab Bakugo's head as he throws him around, him slamming into a building, with Bakugo now coughing as spit comes flying from his mouth. Bakugo would look towards where he last saw Deku, as in Bakugo's eyes, Deku knows this is a signal, that Bakugo is almost out. I guess it's time, Deku would think, as the crashed building's windows would begin to suddenly recede. There he is, All Might would be thinking. As all the windows in the city, the cracked glass would begin to rise, as we see electricity sparking across the glass. Suddenly a crash can be heard as Deku jumps through one of the recently fixed windows as he begins landing towards the city street below. All Might, he'd be thinking, I'm going to prove to you that I can, as he pulls back his fist. Do this! Combining Rewind and One For All, Deku would use the most broken ability he can at this point, quite literally, as Deku would charge 100% of One For All into this punch. As he throws the punch, a blast of wind pressure would come flying at All Might, sending him flying as he slams into a metal pole. Deku would fall to the ground as he uses One For All just as he's about to land on his feet to catch himself on the ground. Just as he looks down, his right arm is completely shattered, black and bruised. Bakugo would call him he's an idiot, as Deku would laugh as he holds his left hand, and then as he takes it from his shoulder down to his right hand, suddenly the entire arm would be healed from Rewind. I just rewind my body back to a few seconds before I throw the blow, he would say. Bakugo remembered how Deku had originally thrown the ball, that when they were taking the test from Aizawa, how he had done a similar thing. It's less efficient, Deku would say, as he says it takes a lot of his stamina and that he can't keep using Rewind forever. But at least his body's physically healed, he would say, as he checks his right arm, feeling it back to normal. I can throw around maybe 10 of those punches before I can't use Rewind anymore. And once that happens, you'll be able to go down too. Anyway, come here. Bakugo would hobble over to Deku as he then touches Bakugo, with a yellow and green electric lights beginning to cover Bakugo as his body reverts back to before All Might had slammed him. Nice, Bakugo would say. Alright, let's go get him. He should be up now. Suddenly, All Might would appear behind the two of them as he brings his knee up, kneeing Midoriya in the head. Ugh! Gotta get rid of the healer first, All Might would be thinking. As Midoriya comes crashing into the side of a wall, he would have used One for All just in time to cushion the blow. Damn, that really hurt, he would say. He would look back as he sees All Might now fighting against Bakugo again. This time we'll take him together, he'd say, as Deku would charge up. All Might, if I get one touch on you, I can revert you back to a baby, you know. This would be what he would say. That is, if you can touch me, young Midoriya, All Might would comment, as he's way faster than Deku had anticipated. All of the Class 1A students are watching the fight, and everyone, including the teachers, are amazed at Deku's utility in combat, as he had just seen him get slammed into a wall and had just fixed himself instantaneously. That might be the fastest recovery hero, well, ever, Aizawa would be thinking. Deku would then go running towards All Might as he charges One for All into his whole body. One for all, feel the calling. As electricity charges over his body, he's now at around 7-8%, since Deku's body can handle more. He could actually go higher if he wanted to, around 20% at this point in time, which is very high for full cowling, by the way, since 20% is around where the overhaul arc was. But you guys have to remember that because he has a quirk, his body is naturally more adept at handling One for All, or any quirk, to be honest, more than a human who doesn't have a quirk would. Deku and Bakugo, we have a small flashback to before the entire fight started. Deku would ask Bakugo if he wants him to use his rewind to revert All Might back to a baby. If he can get one touch on All Might, the fight ends. Bakugo would shake his head, telling him that that's way too broken, and that it basically nullifies the fight to begin with. He would then pound his fist together as an explosion hits over it. He then tells Deku he wants to fight him fair and square, and if Deku can't handle that, then he can leave the gate by himself. Deku would sigh as he tells Bakugo he wasn't going to do that. He just wanted to ask if it was an option that Bakugo would be okay with. Bakugo would sigh as he tells Deku he wants to fight him, and Deku would agree. Back to the present, we see Deku throwing a punch at full cowling, around now 8%, since he wants to test this ability and his control, more importantly. As he throws a punch towards All Might would slap it away with his hand. He says that's too weak. Deku would then bring up his left leg as he throws a kick towards All Might's head. All Might would barely dodge this as Bakugo then blasts him in the gut in an explosion. Bakugo and Deku's teamwork was unexpected by All Might, since the two of them were famous for fighting each other. He didn't know that the two of them were actually good friends as children. It's just that they had a strong rivalry. Bakugo and Midoriya would give each other a fist bump, as Midoriya says that he's ready right now. Bakugo would agree as he says they're ready for that attack. Bakugo would pull out one of his gauntlets as he tells Deku to get ready. Alright, Deku would put two hands on each side of the gauntlet as he charges up Rewind, telling him to go. Bakugo would send the blast as Deku braces himself for the explosion. As All Might gets hit by this huge blast, All Might would be blocking it. That's not nearly powerful enough to... What? Suddenly a second blast would go, and a third, a fourth, a fifth. Deku is using Rewind, his physical ability of Rewind, using Enhanced One for All Rewind, in order to control the explosion's time to when it hits and reverting it back in time before it even started. So Deku can infinitely restock Bakugo's shells with his Rewind ability, because he's simply taking the effect of the explosion and reverting it back to the sweat of the nitroglycerin before the effect of the explosion occurred. And Bakugo is using this to their full advantage, as they're using the time ability of Rewind plus Bakugo's pure power, and it's actually working. All Might's getting whittled down slowly, but the destruction to the city is definitely not worth it, as several buildings are now about to collapse from the explosions. It's become like a nuclear wasteland, and All Might's arms are singed with burn marks. Deku would say that's enough as he tells Bakugo they're ready. Bakugo and Deku would blast off, as Bakugo uses explosions to slam against the walls. He then kicks downwards, heading an axe kick towards All Might's head. Deku on the other hand would charge straight forward as he uses his speed and boosts up One for All full cowling to 15%. As the speed advantage boost would cause him to go flying faster towards All Might, he'd throw a kick towards All Might. As All Might blocks Midoriya's kick, he then sees Bakugo coming in as he blocks Bakugo's explosion. He grabs Bakugo's arm and Deku's leg as he throws them as hard as he can away from him towards the end of the gates. Bakugo and Deku would get tangled up in each other as they get rolled out of the gates and actually pass the exam. Oops, All Might would be thinking, as he didn't even mean to do that when he threw them. It just so happened that that's where they went. Bakugo and Midoriya would be arguing as they pull themselves out of each other's limbs and get up off the ground, with Deku brushing himself off and saying that that was intense. Deku would then walk back into the stadium as he then says he'll fix it up for them, instead of costing the school more money. He quickly would use Rewind and rewind all of the buildings and explosions and flames back to their original form, back to nothing, as the city looks like it was barely ever even touched to begin with. All Might would still be impressed with Deku's ability, but as he then is done, Deku would fall to the ground using all of his stamina that he had. Rewind itself has a few limitations that I like to go over. With Deku's enhanced Rewind, he has several abilities that Eri does not. With Eri being able to control that over living things, Deku with One For All boosting his quirk, which he can also control Rewind over living things to a perfect degree. Deku can now control unliving things, objects, which I've said before in previous parts. However, this imperfect version of Rewind, this addition to it, is something that Deku hadn't necessarily mastered to the degree he had his original quirk. And so when he uses it, it uses much more stamina than the original Rewind does. That's why he can heal himself multiple times easier than fix a city multiple times easier. And at least for now. Deku knows about this weakness, but it hasn't come in that bad since he's mostly had to use Rewind on himself or other people's bodies. Anyhow, Deku himself and Bakugo would pass, with everyone excited at that battle, telling them that was awesome. Seeing All Might go that far against them, those two are going to be super strong heroes. Aizawa and the rest of the pro heroes would be impressed with Deku's thinking, as he had fixed the city right after the destruction had taken place. His quirk would be one of the most beneficial ever to the media, as all the destruction that heroes cause can be fixed easily now, with no cost to taxpayers. Both Bakugo and Deku would not be very satisfied with this result, as they never really got to find out who would have won in a fight. So the two of them were kind of disappointed, but they did pass, so they would be going on to go to the summer camp, the summer training camp. With the rest of the teams participating pretty much the same as normal, and everyone passing who passed and those who failed, failed. After many, many weeks with everyone relaxing and taking their time off, for granted mostly, the summer training camp arc would begin, as all of them are sent over to UA to go on the bus to head over towards their training camp for the summer. As Deku's excited to see what's going to happen, Bakugo and the rest of them would all be waiting in anticipation as well. As everyone's waiting, we would see as the forest comes into view as they'd stop. Everyone would get off the bus as we meet the wild pussycats who would come to greet them. With Deku excited, he then starts spewing off hero knowledge about them, with everyone pretty much expecting this. Pixie Bob would use the ground, as she then forces all the students to get pushed over the edge and then run through the forest to get to the training camp as fast as possible. However, what she wasn't expecting is Deku's reaction time. As the ground begins to move, Deku would suddenly slam his hand to the ground, as he's about to use Rewind on the ground to fix it so that everyone doesn't fall off the edge. Aizawa would suddenly use his quirk nullification, as he stares at Deku with Deku realizing what's going on, as he stops. Rewind would be deactivated as they all fall off the edge, with now it continuing. Pixie Bob would be confused how he actually stopped her quirk control, with her asking Aizawa if that kid has some sort of anti-quirk ability, with Aizawa then explaining the situation, and all the Pixie Bobs being impressed. As Deku would fall to the floor below, everyone would ask what happened, with Deku saying that Aizawa-sensei had taken his quirk away. With Deku now flexing his hand, feeling that his quirk controls come back, he tells all of them they need to get to the forest as fast as possible. Deku be thinking at this time he's not fighting against All Might, so he can use all of his other abilities now too. Deku reaches into his side pocket of his belt as he then pull out a large flower, or a large plant seed. What's that, everyone be asking, as Deku put it on the ground. Suddenly a humongous tree, a redwood, would sprout underneath him as he gets sent flying into the air on the top of it, with some students on the leaves having already jumped off. As Deku's crouching on the top of the tree looking around for the best area to go, Deku would jump off as he deactivates Rewind and grabs the seed from the air. As Deku's now falling towards the ground, he would use his One For All ability. As he uses One For All, he catches himself on a tree and continues jumping from tree to tree limb. Deku would think that if he had used his plants and Rewind during the fight against All Might, he probably could have won, but He and Bakugo had said they wanted to fight him one-on-one and they wanted to test their combat skills. And Deku wanted to test his power with One for All. So, he'll just have to do it next time, he'd say as he smiles. Anyhow, Deku would keep going as he uses plants to deactivate all of Pixie Bob's abilities that she's been using, creating golems to fight him, and everyone else who's lagging behind him. With Deku using Rewind, Todoroki as well as Bakugo would begin using their quirks to get through the forest quicker as well, noticing his speed gap in front of them. This is when Deku decided to kick it up a notch as he goes to his maximum full cowling limit, 25%. As suddenly a speed boost would hit him, he's going flying through the trees faster and faster, easily kicking off as he looks like a blur of green. As Deku finally makes it to the campsite first, he would land as he sees Koda as well as the Pixie Bobs and Aizawa who had arrived by now. With them impressed at Deku's runtime, he'd be fairly ahead of all the others, with him making in time to have a little break and sit down. This would be when he'd be introduce himself to Koda, as well as meet all the Pixie Bombs properly. As the rest of the students arrive, we now switch our perspective to a shadowy figure with a bird-like beak covering his mouth, as he holds binoculars to his eyes, zooming in on Deku's horn and down onto Deku's face. "That's him. Overhaul," Kai Chisakai would be saying, as we see Overhaul as well as his several Yakuza accomplices sitting on the mountain ridge watching as the students of UA have made it to the summer training camp. Behind Overhaul, we see standing there the League of Villains Vanguard Squad, who had been sent as well from the League of Villains, who had no idea any other groups would be coming here, as the two of them were already disputing over who they were there for. All of them on the villain side were saying they were there for a kid named Bakugo, and Overhaul said that was fine. They were after Midoriya. As both groups would split their separate ways, saying not to get in each other's way, Kai Chisakai would be keeping an eye on Deku. He might even have more power with Rewind than Eri, he'd be saying as he's smiling underneath. "I can't believe I missed such a precious treasure. I'll make sure to reclaim it quickly," he'd think, as himself and the other Yakuza members would dive into the forest so they could get into their plan of action, with a few days before it actually starts coming. Deku would have no idea, as the two groups had invaded the forest area and were waiting patiently. If you guys want to see the next part for What If Deku Could Rewind, make sure to slap that like button, comment down below what you thought, and subscribe to the channel for more videos from me. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.